The Grief mode has finally returned in Black Ops 6 Zombies today with the Season 4 update, and in this video I want to dive into my first impressions of the game mode to talk about the positives, quite a lot of the negatives, as well as a lot of things that I think Treyarch could do to improve this mode to make it a fundamentally amazing mode. With the launch of Grief, it's been pretty divisive across YouTube, social media, so I want to break it all down, give you my initial impressions and thoughts on the mode, and hopefully give Treyarch some feedback to help improve this mode to be even better. If that sounds good to you, then sit down, get comfy, click that thumbs up button whilst you're down there, but let me know in the comments as well what your initial thoughts are of Grief, because I would like to think that the Treyarch developers are going to be watching this video, noting down all of the feedback, so be sure to let me and them know in the comments. Now, this first thoughts video is going to be broken down into three categories: the positives, negatives, and improvements. So by no means is this a video where I'm purely positive about the mode, nor is it a video where I'm purely negative. I want to be fair and give it a balanced opinion. So let's first start off with positives. With the first being that I was worried that this mode wasn't going to feel true to the original Black Ops 2 version, but it does feel true to it, and clearly it's been adapted to the modern era of zombies, and they've done it fairly well. This is playable across 5 maps, and they've broken down like multiple arenas of these maps to small bite-sized versions of these maps, which I think actually works really well. I wouldn't think it, but making like small arena versions of these round-based maps actually opens some very unique gameplay that I didn't expect going in, where with the whole point of this mode being to grief other players, there's actually some like unique tactics that are specifically unique to certain arenas that add extra depth and meta that you wouldn't really expect. I was playing on the Terminus Island arena, and one of the metas that we realized is that you can push people into the water and keep them stuck in the water. Then you also have Patient 13 that will go and attack as well, and I thought that was a really cool element. There was these environmental parts of Zombies maps that you didn't really pay too much attention to that actually work really well in this 4v4 mode. And there's other examples like you can melee people into the special zombie rounds on Shattered Veil, and that way they explode, doing extra damage to those enemies, making it a really good tactic to grief players early on and get them down, and I thought that was really cool. Now, reflecting on the Grief mode in Black Ops 2, it was quite a bare bones mode, and I'm really happy that they have gone back and actually added some more meat on the bones when it comes to the Grief mode with the objective rounds. I think they're a fantastic addition and a genuine highlight of the mode, and sort of what makes this version of Grief unique. Now, we'll go into some of the negatives towards this, but the idea of the objective rounds is if one team completes it, they can apply a grief to the opposite team, and you do feel some actual urgency in trying to win these objective rounds. Now, you don't always feel this urgency, but specifically the weapon carousel grief, you lose your starting weapon, ironically making the mystery box a more useful thing in this game mode, which I wasn't expecting either. And I couldn't help but thinking whilst I was playing on these like small arena versions of these round-based maps, it opens like intriguing possibilities to future party modes to be in the game now that we have multiple map arenas that exist. Like, we have Grief now, and as we were playing, we're feeling like, man, some of these maps could actually work really well if they brought back Turned. Like, I think that would be really cool. We can already play as manglers and mutant injections, so if we can already play as a technical special zombie, surely we could actually play as a zombie. I think it would be really fun, and most of the elements of that are already present in Grief. I think foundationally, the Grief mode concept works really well in Black Ops 6, and what we have today is a solid foundation for this mode to be expanded upon. Examples like Patient 13 attacking you in the water in Terminus is awesome, but I think they could go one step further and add some map-specific objectives, so you weren't always doing the same objectives on every single map, where you could incorporate some elements like, I don't know, the bowling Easter egg on Liberty Falls to be an objective where you have to actually play against the other team, get a higher score, or you could do the boat race on Terminus, and whoever wins that boat race, obviously that team wins. And I also think the adjustments to field upgrades like Tesla Storm to stun the enemy team is a fantastic way to mix up the gameplay. What were pretty useless field upgrades in normal round-based zombies gameplay now become genuinely very, very useful. Another adjustments like equipment with shock charges to actually stun the players, I think is also fantastic. And overall, I think Treyarch have a great baseline here. However, there's some other parts of the baseline which I think are just pure negatives and things that I don't like about Grief. And the first and most fundamental one is that you cannot play this in a private match, and I think that is absolutely criminal. You can only play this game with up to 3 friends, but you are always against a random team of 4 in matchmaking, so you can't matchmake and come up against another team of 4 friends. friends, you can only play this with 3 friends. And you can't turn squad fill off either. So it's not possible that we could ever have 2v2 grief or 3v3 grief or even 1v1. All of this was possible like 12 years ago in Black Ops 2. So why is this not possible now? Because the idea of having like a private match sort of like tournament was an absolutely amazing concept that now can't happen because you cannot play this in private match. I have no idea if there's like a technical reason, maybe because the game is always online now, that this just isn't possible. But it is a massive shame, and I would love for them to go back and retroactively add a private match option, because this is what made the original version of Black Ops 2 so much fun. Now, this next negative criticism I knew was going to be a very hot topic and somewhere where I don't know if Treyarch will be able to get the balance right with this off the launch. And it's the fact that I just feel that GobbleGums are too OP in this mode, to be fair. Now, it isn't quite pay to win, but it definitely feels like it's pay to have an advantage. If you play this game mode using 0 GobbleGums whatsoever, the game mode does feel quite hard, and I think that's a good thing. But if you go in and play this game mode with 0 GobbleGums and the enemy team do use GobbleGums, then clearly you're at a disadvantage straight away. Now, whilst I know a lot of the Ultra GobbleGums are banned, Perkaholic isn't banned and Raindrops isn't banned either, and I feel like both of these should be banned. I actually mentioned this to Treyarch on the creator call yesterday where I, said, were there any concerns about Perkaholic being too overpowered in this game mode? And they said that they're going to let the data show and see if Perkaholic is affecting the sort of rate on how teams win more often or not. But I think naturally, like, Perkaholic is one of the biggest buffs that you could ever get in a game of zombies. And when you're competing against like 4 other real human players, having all the perks straight off the bat just doesn't feel right. Like, this is the game mode where you really have to earn your points in order to become more powerful. Like, you need to earn the points to pack a punch, to be able to upgrade the rarity, to buy perks from the Wonder Fizz. And I personally think that all GobbleGums should just be straight up banned from this game mode. But if that feels like a bit too harsh, then I think maybe a sort of middle ground could be a limit on how many GobbleGums could be used in a game. Or they just remove the GobbleGum machines entirely from this game mode, but still allow you to spawn in with the 3 random GobbleGums in your pack. That way you can still use them, but you can't use like an incredible amount of them within a game. Because at least with the launch of the game right now, especially if you're more of a solo player like myself, you have a ton of GobbleGums like stocked up that are very co-op centric that you would probably use in this game mode. There was none of that at Black Ops 2 where if opponents went down, it felt like there was a genuine threat for that opponent team and that there was a chance that you could win. But now you've got like Phoenix up, you've got so many different GobbleGums that you could just immediately pop to bring people back. And it just really cheapens it in my opinion. So potentially there could be like an LTM version in the future that remove GobbleGums just as like a test to see. But I personally think that GobbleGums should just not be in this game mode. That way it's fair for everyone, right? Another criticism is that the games just go on for way too long. Like, I've played about 5 matches of Grief today and I had 2 that went on for at least an hour, going into like round 33, round 35. And these are insanely long games. Like, I don't even think the original Grief went on for that long before. And I think it's due to how easy Grief is fundamentally right now. I could be completely wrong here, but I feel like the zombie damage doesn't really scale. They don't do enough damage to you in later rounds. And with average Grief games going to between round 25 and 35, in natural round-based zombies, the zombies damage that they do to you isn't really that high in those rounds. So I feel like they've kind of scaled the zombie damage to match round-based damage, but not necessarily to match Grief damage. I think the zombies need to be a lot more hard hitting a lot sooner, because at the moment the zombies aren't really the biggest threat. It's more the other human players. And outside of the real human players, the big threats are the special zombies, but they don't spawn in until like round 15, like traditional round-based zombies, which feels far too late for Grief. They need to spawn in a lot earlier. They need to be a real threat to both teams super early on. I think, like, let's do this like round 5, round 6. Just let's introduce some special zombies a lot earlier. And one of the negatives when it comes to modernizing Grief is that one of the objective rounds can happen quite early on being a melee challenge, which sort of focuses some of your game early on to be upgrading your melee weapon specifically and buying melee macchiato very quickly to be strong enough to win that round when it happens. It could be the very first challenge that you get. or it might happen a lot later. But if you aren't focusing on that, you have no hope in completing that challenge. And if you lose one challenge, then that could be the start of losing many, many challenges back to back where you just can't come back from that. Another criticism of Grief in Black Ops 6, and this might just be a Grief in general, but this mode is miserable to play solo. Like, this is just straight up not something you want to play in solo. You really want to play this with a group of friends where you're all communicating, being able to clearly indicate what you're doing to have the most fun. You can't have fun in this game mode playing it on your own. I don't know how they fixed that, because this kind of felt like a problem as well with Modern Warfare Zombies, where it was just always a co-op centered mode. You could still play it solo. The game wasn't scaled to be easier solo, and it's not easier here either, but you also can't play this completely solo either. If you're not playing this with a squad with communication, then yeah, it's a pretty miserable experience. Another problem is a lot of players are just quitting before the game actually finishes, maybe because it's going on too long. But if the other team quit, the game is won automatically. And the problem with this mode, even from within the first 6 hours, is that random players quit way too early into a game of Grief, and there is zero penalty for quitting. Like, I feel like before players quit, there should be a message that lets them know, are you sure you want to do this? Like, you're going to affect, you know, the balance of your team, because it's going to be 4 versus 3 or 4 versus 2. And there seems to be no penalty for leaving. If there was something like, I don't know, a cooldown of like 10, 15 minutes before you could go into another game of Grief again, it would at least add a little bit more urgency into seeing the game through. Like, you've clicked to play this game mode. Why on earth are you going to quit before it's even finished? And I think another misstep is that this game mode does not have voice chat to where you can hear the enemy team. Proximity chat in this game would be incredible. It was a fantastic thing to have in Modern Warfare Zombies. I think it'd be awesome to sort of hear what your effects of griefing the other team do via the voice chats. You can actually hear them struggling, going down, and being able to just like mess with them on the comms, I think would be amazing. I don't want to be able to hear them super loud compared to my own team, but if I'm like near them, I should be able to hear them in the voice chat. I think that'd be awesome. And whilst this seems like a positive, this is also a negative, because I feel there's just a bit of an imbalance here. But there are score streaks, of course, that you can buy and use within this game mode, and they are pretty powerful, like the chopper gunner and the mutant injection. But these don't feel balanced. With a chopper gunner, for the first time ever in Zombies, you're able to shoot down a chopper gunner, which takes a little while to take out. I think that's fair. But if an enemy team uses a mutant injection, or you yourself use one, the other team can actually shoot the mutant injection and destroy it. And this gets destroyed within seconds of the mutant injection, like you being in the armor. Like, it feels way too unfair that you get taken out that quickly. And I think that needs a big adjustment so that, you know, it's not a complete waste of 2,500 salvage. You can actually use it for a little bit before you get taken out. And I think the sentiment with Grief right now is that it has some really good foundations. Like, don't get me wrong, it is a really good starting point. But even with the additional features since the Black Ops 2 version, with the, you know, objective rounds, it just feels like there's still something missing, something to really like flesh this mode out a little bit more. Like, I can't quite put my finger on what else they could add, but it just needs to, I just feel like there needs to be something more. You know, each of these maps and these arenas have some really cool, unique aspects to them. Like, we've got boss fights. Like, how amazing would it be if we could have some sort of element where you could be put into the boss fight in Grief, or be able to control the boss fight, being able to unleash a boss fight if you want a certain amount of Grief objective rounds back to back. That would be insane. And that sort of leads on to my improvements on what they can do to make Grief a lot better. Because like I said, the foundation's there. They just really need to add to it. And the first is that the punishments that you get for failing the objective rounds, besides weapon carousel, don't feel punishing enough. So weapon carousel takes your loadout weapon and it cycles with a random set of weapons until you get to the end of the 60 seconds. And then you're left with that weapon for the rest of the game until you get another weapon carousel, or you swap it from the mystery box. This to me feels like a genuine scary punishment. Like, I hate getting it. But outside of that, the other punishments just don't feel punishing enough. Like slowing your movement down, that's not that difficult. Your ammo draining, again, you can just buy ammo from the ammo box, or you could just run around the map PhD sliding for 60 seconds until that's gone. Like, it doesn't feel like a massive punishment, and I feel it needs to be more jeopardizing Griefs. Like, one example could be losing a Pack-a-Punch level. That would be huge. Another could be losing a weapon rarity level on your gun, or losing a perk, losing a tier of armor. just something to really spice it up and add some real high stakes. Because when you get to the higher rounds, like we're talking round 30 plus, you're doing a lot of these objective rounds. It's just always the same punishments that don't really make much difference apart from the weapon carousel and maybe spawning in the, you know, elite zombies, the special zombies. In the higher rounds, you do get quite a lot of those, and that can be quite hilarious to see like 6 or 7 running around trying to take down the enemy team. But even still, they don't feel like it's too punishing of a threat. Another thing that's missing in the mode is wonder weapons, and this was mentioned on the creator call, and they said that this would affect the power economy and the points economy, where one player would just be like hoovering up all of the zombies, taking them out, getting all of the points, so no one else will be able to get points. And I agree with that, like that does make sense, but I feel they should add like a wonder weapon power-up drop, so something where players can use a wonder weapon for like 30 seconds or so, and then it disappears, a little bit like the wonder waffle DGT drop from Call of the Dead. Once that ran out of ammo, that was it. If you had something like that, I think that's a really fair, balanced way to add wonder weapons in, where you only have them for a temporary amount of time. It could be like a reward for doing 5 objective wins in a row or something like that. This is quite a controversial change, but I think a lot of people are agreeing with this, and I think potentially they might want to remove all augments from perks, field upgrades, and ammo mods in this game mode. Some examples of where the augments are just crazy OP is like Jug, for instance, where reactive armor makes you far too strong. You have Ether Shroud, where you can have Group Shroud, and if everyone's running that, then there's like 1 or if not 2 activations from each player to have the whole group shrouded. Like, that's crazy. Healing Aura, I think, is too overpowered as well. And then some of the other augments for perks like PhD to slide around the map. You can basically negate all of the negatives that involve movement, and also being able to dodge and move around and get away from stuff far too easily. There's probably some more examples that I've missed in this specific list, but if there are any, do let me know. But I think if you removed all of that, it would make the game a lot harder. And potentially an idea could be to experiment with this in a LTM, where there's just a version of this where augments are removed, just to see how it feels. Another criticism that we mentioned in the negatives is that the games just last far too long, and an improvement to this is potentially adding some sort of round limit, or if not, like an objective win limit or time limit, so the game has a little bit more urgency. Potentially one way to speed things up is to have like a permanent rampage inducer active after a certain round, maybe like round 10 or round 15. That way the game is already a little bit more harder because it feels way too easy. It also makes the games go a little bit shorter, adds extra challenge, just adds a bit more weight to the game. And as mentioned in the sort of negatives and ideas, it would be amazing if you won a 5 or 10 grief objectives in a row, you get some sort of crazy punishment to give to the other team as a reward. Something like, again, removing Pack-a-Punch levels, or taking all their weapons and perks away. Just something crazy, just to really add more urgency into completing the grief objectives, because outside of the like temporary like negative buffs that get applied, overall it's not the be all end all if you lose them, which I feel like they should be. And the final improvement is the original grief had a meat power-up drop, which you could pick up and throw, and that would act as a proper deterrent for the zombies to go and attack the enemy team. The closest thing we have in the game to this is decoy grenades, which attract the zombies, but in grief they should attract and go towards the enemy team and attack them, or just add the meat drop back in. I think it was a really cool addition, and I don't know why it's not here, because that was like one of the fundamental like OG elements of the grief game mode, was that meat power up. There's probably a lot of things that I just have forgotten to mention in this video that I'm sure you'll let me know down below in the comments. But like I said, this was my very first impressions and honest thoughts on grief so far. Like I said, I think they have a good foundation here, but ultimately I think there needs to be a lot more to incentivize players to go in and continue to play this, because I'm just worried that after, say, a few days from now, people are going to be bored of grief. They're not going to be playing it anymore. They're just going to go back to playing round based or play directed, because there just isn't that much that grief offers to keep people tied in playing. We know there's a Dark Ops which was leaked where you need to get 115 grief wins, which is an insane amount of wins, so that's going to take a long time. But outside of that, there isn't really any real reason to go back and continuously play grief. And I'd love to see this mode get more fleshed out in the future, kind of like what we saw with Outbreak over the months and seasons with Cold War. But I'd love to see this mode just go bigger, bolder, and better, and just really take the sandbox element that they've got as the foundation and just go crazy with it. But I'd love to know your thoughts in the comment section section below. Am I chatting absolute rubbish? Do you agree with anything that I've said? Do you disagree? That's the power of conversation. Let me know your thoughts down below. We've got new weapons added in Season 4. We've got new Dark Ops objectives, and I'll be covering all of that over the next few days here on the channel, so be sure to look out for those videos. Subscribe if you're new. Turn on that bell. If you want to watch 3.5 hours of me playing Grief live, I live streamed Grief when it dropped earlier. You can check that video out, appearing somewhere down there for you to watch. Really good fun. I played it with Donuts, DK, and MCZ, which was a ton of fun. So go check that out, and I'll be with you in just a moment for that stream.